Hello, today is Wednesday, May 8th, and welcome to episode 333 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I've been gone a while, but if you don't remember me, I'm Jessica Jones, NSI's Deputy Executive Director. Took a little bit of a vacation. And today I'm joined by two NSI senior fellows, Les Munson and Morgan Vigna. If we get Jamil here, that'll just be like a whole new, it'll be like 2025 by the time we're all in the same recording. Today, we're talking about Chinese President Xi Jinping's multi-country 6-day visit to Europe, his first visit to Europe in nearly 5 years. First up, France. He was there on Monday, and he met with French President Emmanuel Macron. On the agenda, not surprisingly, two topics we've talked about here on the show a lot: China's trade practices and their ongoing support of Russia and its war against Ukraine. Macron tried to show a bit of a united front. He invited the European Commission president to join him. And Macron said, and I quote, "The future of our continent will clearly also depend on our ability to continue developing a balanced relationship with China." Next up, after France, Xi Jinping is traveling to Eastern Europe. But he is, while much of Eastern Europe is a bit mad for their support of China, their ongoing support of Russia against Ukraine, he's visiting two countries that are giving him more of a warm welcome: Serbia and Hungary. Both countries have maintained warm relations with both Russia and China has been pouring a lot of money into both countries. In fact, earlier this week, Serbian president said, quote, "Taiwan is China, full stop." In addition, two things that we haven't covered here, we've talked about ongoing trade and we've talked about their support of Russia, but two things we haven't mentioned on the show. There's also been a lot of talk about alleged Chinese spying in Europe. Just last month, British and German authorities made arrests over alleged Chinese espionage. So that's all going on. So my first question to you, Morgan, is, why is he traveling now? How much leverage, when Macron brings up trade and brings up China's ongoing support of Russia, how much leverage does Europe have, considering we just sent Janet Yellen and Antony Blinken there and nothing seemed to happen?
Well, I think, we've seen European leaders go to China. Last year, we saw both Macron and German Chancellor Schroeder head over to China. Clearly, not much progress was made. If anything, we saw sort of the European leaders sort of compete for influence in Europe. And that was more of a signal to China than it was to their European partners. But I think with this visit, Xi's visit to Europe in particular, look, I mean, Xi was hosted by Macron in the Pyrenees. Thanks for that. You're not going to get, your Airbus deal. He denied overproduction, overcapacity, whatever we're calling it these days. And clearly not much progress was made when it came to Macron's push to China to stop funding the Russia's war on Ukraine. And we saw this really sort of play out. Xi almost gave the middle finger to Macron, so to speak, when he went to Serbia and then he goes to Hungary. Clearly, Xi is looking to see division and exploit existing divisions within Europe. He went to Serbia on the anniversary of the Chinese embassy bombing in Belgrade, made a big point of that. And has really attempted to sort of stoke those tensions. And so, as you mentioned, Serbia is, the closest BRI partner in Europe. China, I would note, Jess, you mentioned that, Serbia recognizes Taiwan as part of China, but, China also recognizes Kosovo as part of Serbia. So it is really interesting to see how Xi is trying to sort of pick off those European partners and further stoke the division within Europe.
Yeah, Les, to this point about division in Europe, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz was just in China. He didn't really make such a public showing about European Commission's, anti-subsidy investigations. He didn't publicly rebuke China for their ongoing support of Russia. So his visit is clearly different than probably the Macron welcoming of Xi Jinping. Is there, can Europe create a united front when it comes to dealing with China? Do they want to? I mean, what do you make of this?
Well, I hope European leaders, particularly the Germans and the French, are able to see the world as it really is. China has chosen to align itself with the for lack of a better term, the rebels against the, very liberal, freedom embracing world order. For some reason, China, which has made all this money and lifted all these people out of poverty by trading with the West, has decided it's better to cut a deal with the Houthis. It's better to try to align themselves with radical Palestinian groups. It's better to support Russia's invasion of Ukraine rather than those Ukrainians who are fighting for freedom. This is a huge mistake by Beijing. And they're vulnerable right now in China because the economy is on its back foot. The growth that brought Chinese prosperity for the last 3 or 4 decades is not there anymore. They're facing a lot of challenges. Now is the time for the U.S. and European leaders to have a unified message of knock it off, get back with the program that has done us all so well for so long, and quit supporting Russia and the bad actors in the Middle East and Iran and et cetera. And so the problem is our friends in Europe can't quite figure this out and seem to be seeking advantage against each other when talking to the Chinese. That's a huge mistake. It's better if they follow the U.S. lead, even when it's as milquetoasty a message as from the Biden administration. It's better for them to follow the U.S. lead and have a tough line on the Chinese because they're vulnerable right now and could actually change their behavior. So I hope that President Macron and others see that for what it really is and act accordingly.
Yeah, Morgan, do you think this visit changes anything when it comes to the dynamic of U.S.-European relations, bilaterally and or as we, to Les's point, think about our position with China?
Yeah, getting back to my first point about sort of the divisions that we're seeing here is that understanding that we are in a multipolar world. What we are seeing, though, is that China and Russia are clearly aligning themselves with one another, and they're seeking to, China has sought to expand its influence globally, and it's, I think, further doing that with the help of Russia in Europe. And so the United States clearly has a huge challenge in front of it. We see our NATO partners aligning ourselves with Ukraine in its war against Russia, but at the same time, that war ain't going too well right now. And so I think we need to be sort of very clear-eyed and resolute between the United States and our European partners that we need to stand firm with one another. I think this is a unifying moment, but at the same time, though, we need to continue to push back against sort of that Chinese influence. And so far, as we've seen with this visit, China's definitely making inroads.
Les, because even though it's not a fun Friday, I will say that Macron brought up an Olympic truce. And as the sports diplomat in the group, what do you mean? It is this year of the Summer Olympics. They're going to be in Paris in a few months. Why is there so much conflict? We've got Olympic Games going on. How does that impact foreign policy, Les?
Well, is China going to bring its team of swimmers that have been cheating for years and not been held to account for it?
Or its gymnasts.
And its gymnasts, for that matter. Not sure gymnastics is a real sport, but okay. It's all subjective, arbitrary nonsense. In any event, there will be a world stage in August in Paris where we can see the performance of these countries. We shouldn't underestimate how much that messaging matters for foreign policy and public diplomacy. It's an opportunity for us to advance our values and our interests. And I think you're right, Jones. Like, this is folks are starting to see China for what it really is. And for whatever reason, normal humans get really irritated when people cheat at the Olympics.
Normal humans also like gymnastics and think it's a real sport. With that, that's a wrap. Thanks to Devlin Burney. There's a lot of skepticism coming from Les's face right now. Devlin Burney, Claude Jennings, and the NSI team for their help in producing today's episode. Join us again on Friday, May 10th, for another episode of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you smart fast on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. We're up on YouTube, which I know some more folks have been watching because we've seen lots of comments on there. So guys, check out our YouTube page. If you like what you heard or saw, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.